Everybody, this is David coming to you today from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. It is an absolutely stunning day here today. I don't know, it's probably 60 degrees or something, and that's not bad for springtime in the Netherlands. Wanted to welcome you to Lesson 1 review and Lesson 2 preview for MSOM 601. So let's get started. The first week was really a foundations week, so you began to learn a little bit about e-college. Some of you, I've noticed, came over from the undergraduate program, so as far as navigating an e-college, that's probably pretty easy for you. But one of the biggest challenges for those in that area, and then probably some of the new folks as well, is graduate work is a little bit different than undergraduate work, and the requirements are much more substantive. And that's what I tried to get to in Lesson 1. So as I mentioned in the first video, you really spent no time talking about critical thinking and problem solving in Lesson 1. I really wanted to spend that time talking about foundations of learning in graduate studies. So your first discussion was a personal introduction. I asked you to be very detailed on those. I find those to be very helpful. So I hope that those were beneficial for you as you got to see other people in the class and some of their backgrounds. One of the great things about master's degree programs is we have a lot of diversity from a lot of different industries here. So I'm thankful that we have that type of diversity there. And then I ask you to provide a recap of the things that you saw in the videos and also the things that you found in the Microsoft Word document. And so those I really wanted you to read. I wanted you to watch those videos so that you have an understanding as to what's really important in graduate studies, not only from a research perspective, but from a clarity and writing perspective. One of the things, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the first video or not, but if I didn't, I just want to let you know I'm not an academic. My background's not in higher education. It's in corporate business. However, I just want to make sure that you're very, very clear in your writing. Clarity in writing is not something that's just worthy for an English professor somewhere. It's actually worthy to your boss who reads many, many different types of proposals. And so if you are clear, concise, you have great format and flow, then he or she will be able to look at what you're writing and understand what you're asking him or her to do. And so that was really the basis for the first discussion board. And then the second discussion board talked about the CSU online library. This is always a challenge for people. And I can tell you the people who really began to thrive in graduate studies develop a real understanding of the CSU online library, how to use it, how to make sure that the things that you're looking for are peer reviewed. And so do not fight this. I get to the end of the class, I'm just finishing grading some from the last term, and I still have some students in there who did not understand that, did not get it, and we're still doing Google searches for their sources. Well, that's not going to get you very far in graduate studies. So make sure that you understand and learn to use the CSU online library to find those peer-reviewed academic and professional journal sources, okay? And so that was discussion 2 in Lesson 1. And then the quiz, which I think I mentioned last week, is the only quiz you'll have in this entire degree program. Was really designed so that you can get an understanding of what the top 20 issues are in this degree program from what I've seen in students getting started. Many of them are writing related, certainly APA related, and so I wanted to give you an overview of that in the first application quiz and the only application quiz. Okay, so that was Lesson 1. That's the foundation. I want to encourage you. I will be home starting on the 15th of May, and I'll send an email out. I want to make sure I have an opportunity to talk with each one of you and to meet you and to understand how your first week went. And so there's certain things I can see and I can understand in just looking at your papers, your writing, your discussion boards, but I can't understand who you are personally until I begin to chat with you on the phone. And so I'll send out that email. You probably will have already seen it by the time this video is published. But I want to make sure that I spend at least 30 minutes to an hour on the phone getting to know you a little bit better. And we'll start that in Lesson 2. All right? So Lesson 2 is where we begin to dive into critical thinking and problem solving. And we focus on Lesson 2 on a story. It's called Ominous Story. When I was developing this course a few years ago, I asked the organization who was working with me. I had people, honestly, who had PhDs in curriculum design, who were helping me put together this program. And I said, what I want you to do is to go out and find a book that has a story in it that I'll be able to use throughout a 7-week course that talks about the key areas of critical thinking and problem solving. And so they sent me several, and when they sent me this story from the book Now You're Thinking, it's called Ominous Story, from the book Now You're Thinking, I said, this is the one. And so we're going to be living with this story for the next 6 weeks now, and we're going to be pulling it apart, we're going to be dissecting it, and we're going to be talking about real-life examples of critical thinking and problem solving with the story of this young Iraqi girl who was discovered during the theater of war, had severe heart problems, and unless she received immediate care, would have probably died. And so the entire story talks about how groups in the military worked with outside sources to get this girl out of Iraq over to the United States, to Vanderbilt Hospital, and then get her back and save her life. And so this is a story about critical thinking and problem solving, and I hope you begin to love that story as much as I've loved it when I saw it the first time. And so you're going to be reading this week Ominous Story. You're going to be watching a video on Ominous Story. And then we're going to talk a little bit in discussion 1 about comparing and contrasting. We're going to talk about the difference between critical thinking and strategic thinking. Now, this was a struggle for me as I first started looking at different things because I'm a business person and my background is in corporate business. It's in business strategy. And so what I've found is that people who have a strong background in business strategy begin to blur the lines between what critical thinking is and what strategic thinking is. And so what I'm asking you to do in the first discussion board this week, and actually the only discussion board this week, is to compare and contrast critical thinking and strategic thinking. And I've provided for you in the supplemental readings this week a paper that talks about methods and methodologies to present a compare and contrast story and message. This is really important, and it's not just important from an academic perspective, but it's important from a business perspective too. You may have had a boss before who said, hey, we've got 2 or 3 different ideas out here that we can do. Tell me which is the best one. And so when you think about it, that's just one big compare and contrast exercise. And so if you can develop this type of thought methodology and presentation methodology, sorry, a lot of motorcycles here, that'll be very helpful going forward. And so I'm asking you to compare and contrast using some of the things that you learn in that compare-contrast paper, the difference between strategic thinking and critical thinking, okay? There are 2 applications this week, and applications mean written papers. Now, written papers mean this: cover page, introduction and heading and section, body headings and sections, conclusion heading and section, reference page to put all of your sources. Every single paper that you do for me needs to have those. So your first application paper will be an application about you, and what I'm asking you to do is to go to this outside source and answer a bunch of questions there. And when you answer those questions at the end, it's going to give you what your critical thinking style is. And there'll be one of 7 different choices that they'll pick from based upon how you answer those questions. And so I'm asking you to talk about, you have the top 2, and then you'll have your bottom ones as well. Now, the key thing in this is, I tell students this all the time, I honestly believe that if all we do in higher education is fill your head full of facts, figures, theories, and different pieces of knowledge like that, but we don't teach you anything about you, I think we failed. And so in every single class that I teach in this degree program, you're going to go out and take an assessment, and the assessment's going to give you some sort of indication about you. And again, assessments are directional at best, but one of the key things that I like to use them for is it will become the lens, or it is the lens, through which you view different things. And so you'll get, you'll take this assessment, it'll tell you what your critical thinking styles are, and that will be the lens through which you approach critical thinking topics. And so I tell people all the time, I wish I'd have known this, and I wish I'd taken this 25 years ago, because it could have saved me a lot of headaches as I sat across the table from people with different thinking styles. Now, my thinking style is analytical, and that doesn't make me right or wrong. It just makes me analytical, right? The head of marketing when I was at Conagra was an open-minded thinking style, totally different. And so if you begin to think about that, I sat across the table. We used to get into arguments all the time. And the arguments were because he was looking at it from an open-minded perspective. I was looking at it from an analytical perspective. I looked at him and said, we're never going to get anywhere because you're just opening up a can of worms every time and looking at everything. And he looked at me and says, we're never going to be innovative because you're so hard-nosed about things that you're looking at things one way and one way only. And so who's right? Neither one of us, right? But we needed both of those types of people in the organization to be able to succeed. And so that's the overriding message between this application exercise. So I'm asking you to take that assessment and then to write about it. You also remember from one of the videos, I tell you not to write in first person. Research papers are to be written in third person unless it's a research paper about you. So writing in first person in this particular research paper is okay because it's a research paper about you. All right? That's application 1. Application 2 this week follows up on application 1, and it has you go and look at Amina's story and pick 6 characters, 6 of the key characters out of that story, and talk about what you believe their critical thinking style is or was as it related to that story. And again, the overriding message here is it takes many, many different critical thinking styles to solve problems. And you'll find that the 6 that you pick will all have different thinking styles. Now, here's a tip. Okay, so hear me on this. And I believe this is from chapter 3 of the book, Now You're Thinking. If you read chapter 3 of the book, Now You're Thinking, it will give you the critical thinking styles of several of the people in the story. Okay, so if you're watching this video, this is a freebie video because the ones who don't are the ones who get this wrong. And so if you're watching this video, I think it's chapter 3 of Now You're Thinking where you'll find the different thinking styles of the key people in the story. Okay? I hope this has been helpful. I hope you had a great first week. Like I say, I'll be back stateside on the 14th of May. In the meantime, I'm going to film some videos, hopefully, for lessons 2, 3, 4, and 5 from different locations on this trip. I'm going to catch a cruise tomorrow that will go over to St. Petersburg, Russia. But I'll have several stops along the way. But in the meantime, I'm totally accessible. The Wi-Fi on the cruise ships are fantastic. I've been able to Skype with students. I've been able to download papers and grade them. So nothing's holding me back. If you have any questions or need me for anything, the easiest thing to do, first bounce me an email. I am 6-7 hours ahead of you. And then we'll arrange a time to chat, or perhaps I can just answer it in the email. So, all right. Have a great week. Study hard. If you have any questions, make sure you reach out and talk to me. All right. See you later. Bye.